Good evening. Before most of the East Coast had finished its first cup of coffee this morning, phones were going off. Flash flood warnings were waking people up from Massachusetts and Connecticut, down through New York City and into Philadelphia. Some storms were dropping rain at up to 2 inches per hour, and while the heaviest of it pushed offshore by evening, this is not over. Forecasters say the flood threat continues across a huge stretch of the country through midweek, and the reason why is a stalled weather pattern that isn't going anywhere fast. Here's what happened, what's still coming, and the one piece of advice that saves the most lives in a flash flood. Let's start with today. A slow-moving cold front pushed into the mid-Atlantic and northeast and ran headlong into an atmosphere absolutely loaded with moisture. That combination is the classic flash flood recipe. The front provides the lift that triggers storms, the moisture provides the fuel. The storms came in waves rather than as one line. The first round hit in the morning hours concentrated across New England, eastern New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Maine. Not everyone in the region saw rain to start the day, which is part of what makes these setups tricky. Later in the afternoon, the front itself moved directly over the Interstate 95 corridor, and that's when the stronger storms fired. Philadelphia and New York City sat under a level 2 out of 4 flash flood threat. A flash flood warning was issued for parts of Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and northeastern Philadelphia County, running until 9 p.m. Eastern. A flood watch covered northern and central New Jersey. There was also a level 1 out of 5 severe weather risk stretching from northern Vermont and New Hampshire down through New Jersey, with a few storms capable of damaging wind gusts, though the overall severe threat stayed limited. The story today was water, not wind. Now, about that rainfall rate, because it's the most important number in this whole broadcast. 1 to 2 inches per hour. That's the rate some of these storms were producing. To put that in perspective, most urban storm drain systems in the Northeast were designed to handle somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 to 1.5 inches per hour. When rain falls faster than that, the system simply stops functioning as designed. Water doesn't drain, it pools, then it moves. It finds the lowest point available, which in a city means underpasses, basement apartments, subway stairwells, and highway dips. This is why flash flooding in a dense city is so different from river flooding. A river gives you warning. It rises over hours, sometimes days. Flash flooding in an urban core can go from wet pavement to 2 feet of moving water in under 20 minutes, because concrete and asphalt absorb nothing. Every drop that falls on a city has to run somewhere, and it runs fast. And the danger isn't only in the Northeast. Farther south, tropical moisture kept showers and thunderstorms firing across the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida. The biggest concern there was along the coastal Carolinas, places like Cape Hatteras, Wilmington, and down toward Charleston, South Carolina, where repeated rounds of heavy rain raised the flash flood risk. In Florida and Georgia, storms developed through the afternoon as temperatures climbed, with the strongest activity expected in the Big Bend region and potentially into Miami as the sea breeze kicked in. So that was today. Here's why the story doesn't end tonight. Once that cold front fades, it leaves behind a slow-moving upper-level system parked over the southeast. And the keyword there is stalls. As that system sits, it keeps pulling in additional moisture, which means multiple consecutive days of widespread showers and thunderstorms across the region. A level 1 out of 4 flash flood threat is in place for both Tuesday and Wednesday, with the greatest concern stretching from the deep south into the Tennessee Valley and the southern Appalachians. Now, level 1 sounds low, and on paper, it is the bottom of the scale. But I'd encourage you not to dismiss it, and here's why. The threat level describes the probability of flooding occurring somewhere in the outlined area. It does not describe how bad it will be if it happens to hit your street. And the specific danger in this setup is repetition. Forecasters flagged that storms will move slowly and could develop repeatedly over the same areas. That's a process meteorologists call training. Storm cells moving over the same ground one after another, like train cars, passing a single point on the track. 3 or 4 modest storms over the same neighborhood in 6 hours will flood it just as effectively as one enormous storm. The terrain makes it worse. The southern Appalachians and the Tennessee Valley are full of steep slopes and narrow valleys. Rain that falls on a mountainside doesn't soak in gradually. It sheets downhill and concentrates into creeks and hollows that can rise with terrifying speed. Communities that sit in those valleys can be perfectly dry, while the rain that will flood them is falling several miles upstream. That is one of the cruelest features of flash flooding, and it catches people out year after year. We've seen the cost of that already this season. Fox Weather reported that a fire captain, his wife, and their 3 children died amid flash flooding in southern Utah. In Oklahoma, firefighters had to use rescue boats to save 15 campers stranded in fast-rising floodwaters. Neither of those events happened in the middle of a hurricane. They happened during ordinary-sounding thunderstorms, which is precisely the point. Let me spend a minute on terminology, because these words get used interchangeably in conversation, and they absolutely are not the same thing. A flood watch means conditions are favorable for flooding. Be aware, know your surroundings, have a plan, and don't start a long drive through the area if you can avoid it. A flood warning means flooding is happening, or is about to happen. Act now. A flash flood emergency is the rarest and most severe. It means there's a severe threat to human life, and catastrophic damage is either occurring or imminent. If you ever get one of those on your phone, it is not a moment for checking the radar. It's a moment for moving to higher ground immediately. And now the single most important piece of advice in this entire script, because it addresses the way most flood deaths in this country actually occur. The majority of flash flood fatalities happen in vehicles, not in homes, in cars. 6 inches of moving water can knock an adult off their feet. 12 inches can float most passenger cars. 2 feet will carry away nearly any vehicle on the road, including SUVs and pickup trucks. And the reason people misjudge it is simple. At night, or in heavy rain, you cannot see how deep water is. And you cannot see whether the road underneath it still exists. Flowing water scours away the roadbed. Drivers have entered water that looked like a puddle and dropped into a hole where the pavement used to be. The phrase is worth memorizing. Turn around, don't drown. It sounds like a slogan. It's actually the distilled result of decades of fatality data. Never drive around a barricade. Those barricades were placed by someone who could see what you can't. A few other things worth knowing. If you live in a basement apartment, have a way out that doesn't depend on the stairs you'd normally use, and move important items up off the floor when a watch is issued rather than waiting for a warning. If you're outdoors, get away from creeks, drainage ditches, and low-lying campsites, especially at night. And floodwater itself is a health hazard beyond the drowning risk. It routinely carries sewage, fuel, chemicals, and debris, so avoid contact where you can and wash thoroughly if you can't. To summarize where we stand, flash flood warnings hit from Massachusetts and Connecticut through New York City and Philadelphia early Monday, with storms capable of 1 to 2 inches of rain per hour and a level 2 of 4 flash flood threat over the major I-95 cities. Tropical moisture drove separate flooding concerns along the coastal Carolinas and into Florida and Georgia. Monday's activity pushed offshore by evening, but a stalled upper-level system over the southeast keeps a level 1 of 4 flash flood threat in place Tuesday and Wednesday, with the greatest risk from the deep south into the Tennessee Valley and southern Appalachians. Severe weather potential stays limited. The danger here is water and repetition, not wind. Keep notifications enabled on your phone tonight. Wireless emergency alerts for flash floods often arrive faster than any broadcast can, and in this kind of setup, a few minutes of warning is genuinely the difference that matters. We'll keep following it. Thanks for watching, and please, if you come to a flooded road this week, turn around.